Welcome to the Sacred Healing Podcast, where the old is new, the ancient is innovative, and the forgotten is remembered. We believe that sacred healing is your birthright. Join us on each episode as we uniquely, authentically, and mystically dive into the bold and vulnerable life of many magical humans. From breath, spirituality, shadow work, and all things in the esoteric realm of healing, we don't leave any stone unturned on this bold journey of growth as we start to explore the remembrance of what it means to be human. So take a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and let's get sacred. Okay, you guys, today I'm talking to Serene Quinn, who is a yoga instructor, a circus performer, a licensed massage therapist, and a holistic sexuality and relationship coach. She discovered the joy of movement while she was studying aerial dance and flying trapeze and circus performing in Boston. And she's since traveled around the world teaching and performing. She's literally one of the coolest people that I know. She also received her 200-hour training from Kripalu School of Yoga with a dedication to spread the Kripalu method of cultivating compassion, relationships with the mind and the body. And she also has 770 hours, probably more now, of massage therapy training, and has worked with anyone from receptionists to circus performers, supporting all of these different easeful movements as they work through their day. And in 2019, she received her certification as a Vita Method love, sex, and relationship coach, majoring in conscious dating with master teacher Layla Martin, who you guys know that I love and follow. So Serene is just such a special human being. She's fully in her self-expression, and she uses a method that merges neurobiology, holistic healing, and modern coaching to create this beautiful sacred connection with the erotic and sensual self, and the sexual self. And so she is just a beautiful, beautiful being and guide and coach, and somebody that works with people to help them with their relationships, whether it's the relationship with you and yourself or a relationship with a partner. And she also guides these really beautiful, authentic relating sessions and guides women's retreats throughout the year. So you can find her many places in Massachusetts, delivering her medicine, including our sacred sanctuary. That's all I'll say. I feel like it needs no introduction. So welcome to this conversation with Serene. Okay. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Healing Podcast. I'm Jessica, and I'm here today with the beautiful Serene, and we're going to be talking about a lot of juicy stuff today. So can't wait for this episode and can't wait for you guys to all tune in. But just to get started, I'll let Serene kind of introduce herself, a little bit about who she is, and then we'll get into all the beautiful practices that she brings to the world and all the women's work, all the couples work, all the beautiful things that she has to offer for us. So yeah, Serene, I don't know if you want to just say a little bit about who you are and kind of like your background and yeah, a little bit about your work.
Yeah, my name is Serene. I'm a yoga teacher at Sacred, a massage therapist. I forget all the things. Circus performer and also a holistic sexuality and relationship coach. Yeah, and I do a lot of women's work at Sacred, offering sensual sanctuary. I almost said sensual Sunday, but it is now sensual sanctuary. Yeah, focusing on embodiment and pleasure and all things sensual in the realm of women. And it's been such a beautiful delight and honestly such a gift to be able to offer it at Sacred. I remember like that first meeting that we had. Are you like crying already? I see tears a little bit. Yeah, that first meeting we had at Sacred, and we were all kind of putting in, it was a ritual, it wasn't even a meeting itself, and we were all putting our intention into it. And we all went around and said a word, and I said expansion, and that's just like been the theme of sacred in my experience as a teacher. And that's really what I feel like I'm wanting to do with sensual sanctuary and all this women's work and the sensuality work is to expand our repertoire for understanding ourselves, understanding our bodies, and honing in on our power, whatever that looks like.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm so curious on kind of if you want to share with everyone kind of how you got here, maybe even like a quick background on like, you mentioned a circus performance and like all this like cool stuff that you do that I don't even think people really recognize or know. You can read somebody's bio, but ultimately, you never really know until you kind of get into the depths with somebody. So I'm curious how you came into some of these more embodiment practices through your journey of yoga or massage or even doing circus performance and how that guided you into some of this, deeper work within, tantra practices and sensuality and pleasure, and maybe how that guided some of the journey, if it did at all. I don't know. Don't want to lead the question, but I feel like there was some sort of like a path that maybe guided you to do this deeper work. And I'm just kind of curious how you got there.
Yeah. Still on the path.
Yeah.
It's always twisting and turning. But yeah, I don't know if I can like go all the way back to like even childhood, really. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I have been in this work since I was a child. And but really the opening pathway was yoga. I remember my parents had Gaiam yoga DVDs and
Oh.
Rodney Yee. It's like this really like jacked like yoga
Shout out
shot.
Rodney. Yes.
And I remember I would just be like kind of bored or shout out Rodney Yee. Oh yes, the original inspiration. I remember I'd just be kind of bored and I'd be like, oh, like who do I want to be right now?
Mhm.
And I would pick like a yoga DVD and be like, I'm gonna be a yoga person now. And I just like lit incense and I breathed and I did the Rodney Yee yoga and it was awesome. And that really felt in a little bit deeper for me when I was 17. I did this like weird random program where I went to school for like in high school, went to school for like 3 days out of the week. And then the other 2 days I went to a yoga studio and I just signed people in and did some of like the backlog work. And then I just took classes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it really it completely shifted my perspective of like even how I showed up in school and how I saw people and I was getting really deeply into Abraham Hicks and like
Mm.
Louise Hay and all that stuff in that time in my life. So yeah, that was kind of like the start of the embodiment. And then I all of a sudden I just like I had this kind of like vision of like people twirling down ribbons. And I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do after high school. And I was like, why don't I do that? Like, I'll just do that. And I found a school that offered it. And
Cool.
so I went into it with little to no experience in dance or anything. But I feel like the yoga really informed the circus. And now the circus is really helping to inform a lot of the sensual work that I do now in my own personal sensual practice. And yeah, art is just a huge part of sensuality and sexuality as well. So it's really important for me to keep diving into art. And yeah, from there I did massage and all that stuff. And then eventually I ended up taking an online training with Layla Martin. I really resonated with her work. Yeah, and ever since I like first started having sex, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait, hold on. There's something here. This is really important. And I found her YouTube videos and I was doing all kinds of practices. I was doing Jade Egg, and then I eventually took her online course, which was super immersive. And I think it took me like 2 years to complete. And with that, I specialized in coaching for holistic sexuality and relationships. And I also specialized in conscious dating and crystal egg, which is a big part of my heart and my practice. Yeah.
Ooh, there's so much
How many
there.
things? Like
There's so
I could
much
talk
there.
for an hour to answer that question, but I
Yeah. No, that was a good kind of pathway that led you to where you are and the work that you're doing now. And I think it's important to kind of pick out a few pieces there that it like all started in play. You know, it started just like with the
yeah.
child being allowed to explore different pathways and different play and yoga and movement of the body. And to me, when I think about you and your yoga style and like how you move about the world, it's very flowy, it's very like free, it's expressive. And it exudes a different type of energy, like a beautiful feminine energy. And so I just like applaud that exploration even from a young age, and like thanks to the parents that like allowed that to come through too. And then guiding you to the circus, which is like all art, you know, it's like a beautiful expression of movement of the body and
Mm.
um I don't even know what else
And
goes into
theater
it.
and that
Yeah,
whole
theater. Yeah.
like expression of emotion and
Mm.
all of that, which is like through your body, not even necessarily through words all the
Mhm.
time, but yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's all
Mm-hmm.
about expressing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Emotion, like the physical element of it. And I know you do a lot of work with silks, so you're doing work like dangling from high locations down and doing silk work, which is so beautiful. And I've gotten the opportunity to see you do some of that work. And it's really pretty. It's a beautiful piece of art. It really is. And um it feels really almost like when a musician is improving, you know, it
Mm.
feels like you're just kind of following the flow of the body, which is really cool. So you're you know, Dharma artist in that way. And now coming into this like more expression of sensuality and sexuality. And I didn't even have the crystal egg stuff on my list of things to talk about, but
Oh, yeah.
we will talk about that. So I would love to get into more of that like juiciness of tantra, what those practices have meant for your life and maybe how they've even like changed your life in some ways. You mentioned like from your first sexual encounter, you had this like intuitive download that there's something more. So where has that kind of led you? Like where has tantra led you? And also like maybe for the people that are listening, like what is tantra? Because I do think that there's actually misconceptions out there or ideas of what it is, and maybe people don't actually know what tantra even means in the Vedic form or in the ancient forms,
Yeah,
Tibetan or yeah,
totally.
whatever you've studied. Yeah.
I have a long answer for that.
Cool.
So yeah, what is Tantra is a question I get all the time, and I totally get it. Um, it can feel like a lot and confusing, and there's all these like kind of perceptions about it. So the way that I explain Tantra is so we have a few different tiers here, not necessarily of Tantra, but of holistic sensuality and sexuality work. So we have holistic sensuality, sacred sensuality or sexuality, and then we have Tantra. And so when we start with holistic sensuality or holistic sensuality, I'm not going to use those words interchangeably. I'm just going to keep saying them because they're different. But holistic sensuality and sexuality is really about all the work that you also bring to the table is the breath work, energy work, movement, sounding, you know, releasing sound. So I know that you know, that's a lot of your breath work practice. But we're really kind of with holistic sensuality or sexuality, we're adding in that element of sensual or sexual nature or movement or activation. And then, so that's kind of like a base and a foundation. And it's essentially like mindful sexuality. You can think of it that way too. And then we have sacred sensuality or sacred sexuality. And that is when you start to build the bridge between your body, this earth, this physical realm that we're living in, and all your kind of sensory inputs. And we're bridging that with the heavens or the cosmos or spirit or whatever you want to call it. So we're starting to bring in more spirituality work with that. And that might look like energy work. Um, that might look like working with different archetypes within yourself. So that is sacred sensuality or sacred sexuality. And then tantra is mostly about developing higher consciousness with your partner or with yourself. Don't forget you can do solo tantra. I think, yeah, number one like question that I get is like, what is tantra? And I think people have these ideas of like, yeah, the Kama Sutra and this or that, or you know, you need a partner to do it. And you don't. You don't. It's just another way to practice. So yeah, and Tantra is really a way of finding enlightenment through sex. And that's like, I mean, that's not all of what Tantra is, but if we're talking about tantric sex, that's what it is. Um, so yeah, it's more about ascension. And then if you're with a partner, it's about finding that oneness and that ascension through that oneness.
Beautiful. Yeah, and there's so many tantra practices too that are out there that aren't, related even to like a sexual practice.
Mhm.
You can stare at a candle and like have that experience be like the enlightenment experience, and that's more about energy and concentration and focus and drishti and like all of that can be combined into it, and then also like relate to presence when you're with your partner or with yourself too. So I think there's so many different practices that are out there that I think people just get kind of confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for that breakdown. That's super, super helpful. Um, and you work with, I mean, I know at Sacred we're doing sensual sanctuary, so you're working with a cohort of individuals and women and femme-bodied people, and also you're working with couples. So what is the differentiation like between the work that you do with individual folks and like self-pleasure practices and things like that, working on sensuality versus what you're doing with couples, and how does that look different? Or does it even?
Yeah, it looks really different. Yeah, it's a whole other thing. Couples work is definitely it feels so different in energy for me too, because you're not only but I guess in similarity actually, which is what's coming up for me right now, which is the similarities of it
Mhm.
is when, you know, you're teaching individuals about tantra or tantric practices or holistic sexuality when I'm teaching. Um, it's really important for me to allow people to explore all the different archetypes and all the different, uh, in therapy, they call it internal family system. So all these different, you know, archetypes within yourself, where like we have the inner child or the warrior within, or what's one that's coming up?
Yeah, like all the parts work basically.
Yeah.
There's the maiden, the mother,
Mhm.
and for a guy it could be like the knight or the warrior, the king, the
Right.
queen, so many.
Yeah, and
And the
how all of these aspects and all of these different archetypes have their own way of relating to sensuality. It might be very healed and empowering, or it might be kind of distorted. So,
Mm.
in a lot of sensual sanctuary, when I'm working with individuals, it's really about going into those pieces, trying to get to know those aspects of yourself, bring them through and kind of like have this conversation like, how do you feel about my sensuality? What is your expression of sensuality? And that's really where the expansion comes from, is acknowledging all those different parts of yourself. Um, and then kind of similarly, but like double time when you're working with couples, there's all these different, internal pieces that come up and come through when you're just in a simple conversation with your partner, or if you're in a really complicated conversation with your partner. And they're all trying to communicate with each other internally, and we're having that interpersonal communication, but then we're also having this I'm forgetting the word for it, but the the external conversation
Yeah.
with the people, and all these different parts of ourselves. Are my inner child might be, trying to like poke at your, high priestess or something,
Yeah.
like in this kind of relationship. So the individual work that I do in sensual sanctuary gets like double timed and like
Mm.
really intense because it's just another person involved.
Yeah. And also a lot of what you're doing is like for lack of a better word, like therapeutic work, especially with the internal family systems and the parts work kind of being like layered on top of all of that so that you can get to maybe some sort of permission slip from all of the different parts to be able to feel freedom of expression and whatever that might look like, or be able to follow down a path or a thread in the sensual or sexual practice that allows them to feel more comfortable. And like, especially for people that have been through like traumatic things in their life, I think this is really important too, because there might have been some sort of a suppression or depression of something that happened like back in childhood that now is impacting sensuality and sexuality later in adulthood and blocking almost the experience for somebody in terms, not just in terms of pleasure, but like in all areas of life. It might even be like infiltrating and impacting. And it's kind of like who's running the show, you know what I mean? Like what part is coming online and what part of the show are they running in this part of your life?
Yeah.
And how can you integrate that? So I think it's beautiful that you're doing all of that work too, because it's super therapeutic and healing on so many levels, not just in like couples therapeutic like relationship coaching, um, but also in sexual practices. I feel like there's so much nuance there too, with what people like, what people don't like, what people might be into,
Mhm.
what lights them up inside, what lights up different parts of their brain. There's like so many,
Yeah.
endless, of what people might be calling for in
Yeah.
relationship. And I can imagine with couples, if one partner's like super into something and the other partner is not, like where there's like limits to
Yeah.
how the work could go or morph itself into a way where there's some sort of like, I don't know, ability for them to come to equilibrium on how their sensual practices or sexual practices are looking for both of them.
Yeah.
Gosh, how complicated.
Yeah. I
Even
guess.
saying that word salad, I'm like, oh God, how complicated is that?
Yeah. I used
Crazy.
to do couples coaching for like 75 minutes.
And you're like, we
It's
need
not
8 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Locked
we
in a
need an
room. Yeah.
immersion, like
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
real. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, locked in a room.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. It's a big
Cool.
one.
I love that. Well, I love all the work that you're doing in the world individually and for couples. I think it's super important. And yeah, there's not a lot of people that like choose to go down deep down this path. And I know it's like a life's
Mhm.
calling and purpose for you. So I just appreciate what you're doing. There's a few things that I have questions about for you because this podcast, we're not like going to stay on the surface. We're going to go deep into the depths of all the cool stuff that you guys want to hear about. And actually, a few people that knew you were coming on today sent me questions because they were like, "Oh, you're talking to Serene. I have questions, things that maybe they didn't want to ask you themselves, but I will definitely ask you." So I want to start breaking down some topics.
Wait, can I hold on for a second?
Yes,
I
please.
desperately crave you guys to be asking me these questions. Send me a DM. Like,
Let's talk.
like let's do it. So I
Yes.
get that every once in a while, but for the most part, I feel, yeah, like it's a very timid thing, and I get it. It's like so vulnerable to actually just like
Yeah.
straight up ask a random question like that.
Like, hey,
So,
yeah, like even things about like the pussy and pleasure and like vaginal things, like I feel like women kind of shy away from that. And it's like, no, we actually need to be
yeah,
sharing this information. Like, please tell us.
yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about all the things. The first kind of lane that I want to go down with you, that a few people wanted to know about, myself included, um, was the practice of using ropes and there was recently something that I saw that you did on social media where you were using ropes, tying yourselves up with another woman, and it felt like truly like a sister wound healing experience. And I know it's something you can do with partnership too. Um, but yeah, I'm just curious, anything that you have about that, what's it called? What is the purpose? What are the practices and like how does that look? In like a Galentine mode, since we're here almost at Valentine's Day, this feels like a really potent time for us to be talking about this, but also like
Yeah.
what does that look in partnership or in solo work too? So yeah, that was one that people were really wanting some squeezed juice out of.
Yeah, yeah. Shibari, Japanese rope bondage shibari. It is something I am no master at. I love it and I love tapping into it. And
Cool.
it was again kind of similar to that, like my first sexual experience, like my first shibari experience was like, even the first movement of the experience was like, whoa. Like, whoa, what is that? Like, I know what this is though. Um, so yeah, shibari. What was your question about
Kind of
it?
just what is it and like what is the purpose behind it? Like why would one
Yeah,
do
why
this
are we doing
Japanese art? And
this?
also shout out Japan. But like
Yeah.
for the Reiki and for the Shibari, we love you. And for
Yes.
a lot of other things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, sushi.
So the way that I
Yeah.
experience shibari and the way that I like to like facilitate shibari experiences for other people is through like a bodywork lens.
Mm,
I tie it really closely to Thai massage.
mm,
Except there can, I don't know, maybe just because of its reputation, I just kind of feel like there's this added element that of like sensuality that we can really embrace and bring into it. Um, but yeah, so body work. So the ability to fully give in and surrender and allow someone to move your body around to find
mm,
these either restricted or really open and really vulnerable postures, if you're the one being tied. So it is a really great practice in receiving, which is something that most women really
yeah.
today, like we really need to figure out
Mm,
safe spaces for or like even just figuring out how do I surrender? Like what does that
mm,
mean? And who
mm,
do I surrender to?
mhm,
Or what do I surrender
mm.
to? You know, it's like these really kind of like big heavy questions that I don't think anyone really has that many answers to right now for the
Yeah.
majority of society. So very similar to Sensual Sunday and to or sensual sanctuary practices and tantra. Shibari is this practice if you're being tied of surrendering.
Mm,
And if you're the one tying, it's a practice of being the opposite, right? Being the provider, being the space
mm,
holder, being the dom. And that being said, yeah, it can be a really beautiful, soft, cozy experience. It can also be, if you're wanting a little edge and a little bite, like it can also be like a more rough around the edges and a little bit more spicy, a little bit more BDSM like. So
okay, so this is great. Somebody did ask for you to describe BDSM, so we're kind of going there. Um, and we'll get there. And I do want to hear more about like the submissive energy versus like the dominant energy. I love the way that you're describing it more of as like a surrender and a receiving and then a providing. Which I feel like, you know, both genders could play those roles in different ways. Um, I also think it's super important, especially for women to feel safe in these experiences. And I don't think that there's a way that a woman could fully surrender unless they felt safety in whatever container it is that they're trying out these things. And so what I appreciate about what you bring to the table is just like a little bit more of the relaxed energy so that people can feel safe. It's like there's no pressure to perform in any way. There's no pressure to look a certain way or do a certain thing. It's really just about like surrendering into the energy of the experience. And so I appreciate that because this is also deep work too. You know, people might have expressions somatically from from these experiences as well, almost like as deep as if you were to do a breathwork experience
yeah.
or any type of big like somatic journey. Um, what has it been like? And before we get into like the BDSM world and the dominant submissive world, what has it felt like for this to be like really healing woman to woman? Because I know you've done a little bit of work with this woman to woman, like woman tying woman.
Yeah.
How does that like dynamic work?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned earlier. I mean, we both mentioned, yes, we're talking about women and women in this surrendered role, but also, you know, the not Not saying that men don't need to learn how to surrender. Men, like, yes, we're definitely there.
Our nervous systems can all surrender.
Yes, for sure. And uh yeah, so the surrendering bit is super important, but it's also not gendered, and dominating and submission is not necessarily, male female, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. And that's the thing about masculine and feminine energy, right? We're not really talking about genitals here. We're just talking about the energetics of masculinity and femininity. And it's the same with domination and submission. So, yeah, woman to woman, though, with Shibari, I find that, yeah, like I personally, when I'm tying somebody else, I can find a space. Again, it's like very similar to as if I were doing a massage for someone or holding space, in a yin yoga class or something, just like very, really soft and kind of like, okay, like really gentle and like my precious like thing. Like, how do I make sure you're okay? And all of my attention and focus is like on this person. So yeah, and working with other women, tying other women has just been um so beautiful. Like I'm so grateful to have been able to tie other women and to take them through experiences like this of these like deep surrendered spaces. Um and to be able to bind them and then release them and do something for them that maybe they don't feel even necessarily comfortable asking their partner or a person of the opposite sex or anything like that. Like it can be really held in this space of healing play. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, something that you mentioned there was like holding space for a body, which requires like responsibility. Um, and like what I mean by that is like the ability to respond to the body. So I'm sure it looks different with every person because every person's going to be reacting differently or having different like movements that occur based off of like how the tie is being done. And so I'm sure it's just so unique based off of the body and the energy and all the things.
Yeah.
And I love that you're also like kind of intricately comparing it with like massage too, because it's like the more like Thai massage is more like physically moving the body in order to like release fascia in a way, like if we're putting it into to tiny little like simplicity, which is also that's also an expansive practice. But it seems like this is also something that like constricts and then releases. So there's almost like it's almost like when you like wrap yourself up in a tiny little ball and then you like release, or if like you wrap your fist up tight and then you like release your hands. Would maybe be like a good like analogy for like what is happening in the like surrender and then the release of that.
Right. Cool. And the compression and the expansion. Which is just like which is a topic I talk about a lot in Sensual Sanctuary, which is like, okay, that's orgasm, right? It's like it's contraction. Its muscles are contracting and then they're releasing. So in order for that to happen, we need to have that strength. Not that you're actively, doing that with an orgasm, you could be, but having that strength, but also having the deep ability to surrender and to let go. So I see Shibari as like that too. You find a wrap, you find you find a position for them, for the person being tied. They're in it for a while, and maybe you play with the energy there. You notice their breathing, you notice the energetics. You can even talk to them if they want. Like, again, it's about them, and then to slowly release them and allow them to just like soften. Into like finally being free. And those people in those moments, they need to be held. It's called aftercare. And they need to be held in a way that is really supportive so they can really let go because their mind has most likely just gone through subconscious space. So they call it subspace in BDSM, where to me, it's very similar to a flow state, but you're not doing anything, right? It's not really like, okay, I'm in a flow state in my vinyasa yoga class. It's like you're in a flow state in your spirit. Yeah.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like, that aftercare is almost like what you would do if you did any type of big ceremony. It's the integration part of it, anything that you're doing, like whether it's breath work or sound or plant medicine or anything, like there's that period of integration where you want to be held, and supported. And so that feels really important actually that you do that piece of it. Comparatively, I don't know how many times I've heard people come to me and talk about breathwork experiences that they've had where there was no integration afterwards, or it was just like a huge expansive breathwork experience and then they're getting sent out the door. And that like horrifies me because I'm like, no, like where's the integration? Like there has to be some rainbow arc or like some come down so that they can feel stable in the body before they're leaving the space. So thank you for mentioning that.
And exactly for you, for the person who's facilitating a ceremony as well. I know I've messaged you before and been like, oh, do you want to get coffee or something? And you're like, I have a ceremony that day. And I was like, damn, she takes the whole day off to prepare for the ceremony, like so that you can put your energy into it and to the people that are coming through. And that's exactly like the ethical and safe way to hold that space. Because your attention is going into the ceremony, your attention is going into the people there. And it's the same thing with BDSM if you're doming people.
Interesting. Wow. And I mean, I'm sure that's the same thing with any like consciously informed practitioner in their field, because by day I'm like a businesswoman. So it's like emails, calls, coffee meetings, all the things happening. But my dharma on this planet is ceremony. So all that has to kind of like shed away. So there's the prep work and then there's the integration. So it's like that's a whole bubble and aura around the protection of the work. And that's why I do think people like need to have discernment of who they're working with. If you get a bad vibe or a bad energy from anyone, myself included, I'm sure I'm not like for everyone either. I feel like that's okay and just like listen to that, like listen to the gut of like who you want to work with and who feels really in alignment with you energetically, because I do think it's really important who we choose to work with all these practices, especially the sensual and sexual ones, because there can be past trauma that can reignite or trigger through any of these practices. And if you're not held by somebody like Serene, who I consider to be somebody who's like really informed, trauma informed, somatically informed with how to integrate, it could be a bad experience actually. And that's not, there's always the shadow side or the polarity or duality of what somebody brings into the world and the other side of it. There's always that, because this work can't expand unless it goes down either, so there's always both. But I just appreciate that you bring that up, because the prep work and the integration is so important. Two things that came out from what you just mentioned. Cool. Before we go to BDSM, I know I keep like, sorry everyone, like teasing. I'm like, we're gonna talk about it.
That's great.
But you mentioned the contraction and the expansion with orgasm specifically, and there that word expansion is again. Yay!
Yeah.
Whoop! The manifestation of that. So I'm curious in like partner work, when people are working with like and I maybe this is part of tantra. I'm a little bit like unsure. So maybe you can help answer this. But when people are almost like holding back the expression of orgasm in order to like elongate the experience, how does that look? Like, is that something that partners are kind of like working towards in order to not have that orgasmic experience, in order to continue the like energy work without that? Or what are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm going to try and hold back as much as I can. And I've actually heard a lot more of that from men trying to hold back release, because not because like they want to please their women longer, which like yay, amen, like we love that, but also
wait, what? No, not because they're trying to please their women.
Please themselves.
Okay, then why are they? No, so I'm here for it.
Yes. Yeah, I guess I'll stop there. That's not a question, but I'm curious as to like what that practice is in Tantra and like why. And like I feel like men always have this thing with it. Not always, men sometimes, and I've heard it more from men, that they have this thing where they need to like hold back or like hold back the expression of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's more for like the energetic like purpose behind it,
Yeah.
but I also want to know like what that means in the tantric world or the sensuality world or like what you've heard.
Yeah, this is a great question. Because I've gotten that a lot too. I forget his name, but like a really popular boxer or wrestler or something. Really, really popular guy. He used to practice this. So he like,
Okay.
because it would bring up his aggression, it would bring up his
Mm,
energy, and he would be ready to fight. So he wouldn't
got
have sex when he was, guys, I need to look this up.
it.
So I forget his name. But anyway,
It's like, kind of like celibacy, but not. It's like a control thing almost, I feel like.
so yeah, so I mean edging would be you're eventually going to release that energy, or you're eventually going to ejaculate or come or whatever it is. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Great. So eventually, but you can kind of build up your tolerance, and that can help you, yes, last longer.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about these men or people that are not wanting to have sex while doing that, is that what you're saying?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so you could be celibate and just be
Mhm.
like, I'm not having sex, I'm gonna build up that energy.
Mhm.
For sure. You could also be having sex while working with those edging points. So you'll
Mhm.
kind of stop and take really deep breaths into your genitals before you keep going. And then you'll keep going because the
Okay.
idea is you want to essentially build up tolerance so that you can go a little bit longer. So you continue bringing yourself to this point of like you're almost opening the door to the point of no return, but you're not going to walk through that door.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
going to release or you're going to come out or whatever it is, take a breath really deep, and you have to breathe that energy through your body and through your chakras. I don't know if people are doing that. I'm not sure. And then continue with bringing yourself to the edge and then turning back. Women can do this too with orgasm. For sure during self-pleasure. Never forget about self-pleasure. Um, yeah, but it is something that it will give you more life force energy as long as you breathe it through the microcosmic orbit, as long as you breathe it through your chakras
Mhm.
and through your energy, and then you store the energy and protect it while you're doing the practice, but also when you're done, like when you're like, okay, like I'm not, let's say someone's like, okay, I'm not going to come for 7 days,
Mhm.
but I'm still going to have sex every single day.
Mhm.
So after every single time they have sex, they want to make sure they're breathing that energy through their body
Mhm.
and finding that ability to expand their energy. And that does hone in on your life force energy, your creative energy, that root chakra, and that second chakra energy. And
Beautiful.
again, women can do this too. This is not just like a male practice.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I've only talked to men working with this,
Yeah.
so
As
it's yeah.
just make sure, be like, are you cycling your energy?
Yeah. Are you?
Because I feel like they might
Are
be
you
like,
just
what? I'm
yeah.
just holding on to it. I'm just like, look how strong I am. I'm holding on to it. Like, no, you gotta flow it, bro.
Flow it, bro. Hashtag flow it, bro. Yeah, I think that's a good point too. And like I'm no expert to give men advice on that, but I do think it's more of like a oh, power through, I can hold it, I can control it.
You
Um,
want to be able to
yeah.
find relaxation
Yeah.
after the fact. Again, bring
Mhm.
yourself and then find relaxation. Be
Yeah.
able to stabilize yourself.
Mm. Beautiful. And then
Unless you're boxing,
unless you're
then you
boxing,
want to keep that aggression going.
go for it.
Yeah.
And then what would celibacy be in the like is that connected to the world of Tantra? Is that a practice that connects to life force energy as well in a different way? And like what does that look like in a healthy way, I think.
Yeah, tantric celibacy. I don't know a ton about it. I have not gone down that path.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a thing.
Okay.
And I'm sure it would probably have to do with preserving your energy as well, and also, yeah, working with your own energy. But I'm actually not too sure what tantric celibacy fully is.
Okay.
Not an expert
More
on
on that later. We'll research and get back to you.
Yeah.
On our next podcast.
Uh,
So let's get into BDSM. The people want to know. I got like at least
Who's
I think I do. I
that?
think
Okay, cool. I want to
so
know.
so let's talk about like the what's out there in the universe of the world, which is 50 Shades of Grey, like what's that other show? 365. There's like some other shows that are really like showcasing a little bit more of the BDSM or the dominant submissive relationship.
Hmm.
There's also like a whole world of like smut, which is like, novels for people that are interested in, exploring sensuality in the world of like reading and consuming art, which is also kind of cool. So that's kind of like what people are seeing out there in the world, I feel
Hmm.
like. And like my own experience with like knowledge of BDSM, the first I'll never forget like the first time I got like exposed to it. I lived in San Francisco, where they have Folsom, which is like a huge like community of LGBTQ like plus wearing leather. It's like a leather festival essentially. And one of my one of my gay friends came to town that I used to cheerlead with, and we went to Folsom, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening on these streets? So it was like I felt like I was a little bit naive to the world and
What
like
was happening?
so much.
Okay.
So much. A lot was happening. Yeah, we can talk about that later, but like everything you could imagine was happening. And it almost like opened my eyes to like this whole world that was out there that I actually didn't even know existed, like on that plane, or in that like intensity, I guess. And I was like, well, duh. Of course it exists, and also, I read this amazing book by Jamie Wheal. And so just like shout out Jamie Wheal because he also talked about in his book the healing benefits of BDSM. And so then like on a deeper level, I started to understand a little bit more about how this could be like a healing modality for PTSD or trauma, or like sexual trauma, things like that, that really could be healing in the world of, surrendering, or being dominant. Both can be healing. So I'm curious, your knowledge, personal experience, either from yourself or with coaching or whatever that you have on these practices and kind of like how they've worked through your own like work and dharma. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And also, what is BDSM, if we can maybe start there too?
yeah, bondage, domination, submission, and masochism. So BDSM is just like another way to play with the energy.
Mhm.
Like it's almost as simple as that for me. So you can look at tantra or tantric practices or sacred sensuality or holistic sensuality, um, and use those same principles. You're just kind of allowing more of fantasy realm and scenes and archetypes to come through so much more. So you can do that sacred sensuality work with your archetypes. But you can also do that in like a BDSM setting with other people, or with yourself or whatever.
So shibari is technically bondage, which falls under the BDSM category. Is
Yeah,
that right? Okay.
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Awesome. So we should have started with BDSM, but that's okay. It's all good.
It all circles back.
It all
The
comes back
BDSM.
around. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for kind of breaking down the acronym first of all, and then
Yeah.
also kind of like what that looks like. So yeah, I'll let you kind of continue on the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, BDSM, yeah, I would agree that it is definitely just another healing tool. You really want to know who you're working with, if that's what you're working with, and do a lot of research on those roles and what it means. Because I think a lot of times people are like, BDSM, like, oh my God, who would ever want to be hit? And it's like, well, that's not all that it is. So there's so much more energy behind it, and it's really like at its purest essence, it is really so much more of you accessing as a submissive or as a dominant, I guess, of you accessing on a deeper state of consciousness or a deeper part of yourself that can hold space for this darker, or maybe sometimes it feels darker or maybe even shameful or, whatever kind of societal labels you want to put on a fantasy that you have or something that does turn you on. You can actually begin to really heal through your shame with BDSM. That's a big one is shame. Or your power. You can start to take your freaking power and start to dominate others in a consensual way through BDSM by taking on that dominant energy. So it's really just another play space. I think of it as like definitely like the kind of one thing that's like honestly, it feels like one thing that's different about like Tantra and BDSM, if I were to be so bold, um, is the encouragement of fantasy
Okay.
and the encouragement of those archetypes. And creating those scenes with them and playing them out because it's happening internally, right? Okay,
Yeah.
my inner child is like speaking to the, inner firefighter. I don't know. And it's like, she's just like wants the cat in her tree or cat's in her tree. Like,
Save
oh,
me.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, I could be like ashamed that is like, that I'm like not being an independent woman or this or that, but it's actually really a space to be held in your inner child, and that inner firefighter is there. So that's another part of me that can be like, "Yeah, girl, I got you. Don't worry, I'll save the day." So yeah, you can work with a lot of different parts of yourself, and you can also do that with other people. Yeah, in this kind of scene creation of BDSM.
Cool. So theater, which is like
Theater, yes.
theater.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So
Yeah.
art, theater.
Yeah,
Comes
right.
back to that.
Right. And again, so just like with somatic expression work and some of the sensual Sunday work, the inner parts work, the expression, like the external expression or the somatic expression of, yeah, whether it is a trauma, whether it's a feeling of a more positive feeling, or if it's something that feels like more negative and hard to deal with and heavy, you can actually bring that into your body, breathe it out of your body by shaking, by, dancing, by taking on that archetype and find those healings through yourself, through those practices. And that's literally what BDSM does, just in a different way.
And
But yeah.
contained with rules too. It's like almost like playing a game. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, there's actual rules, there's
totally.
code words, there's ways where the dominant will make sure the submissive person is like still playing the same game.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more of a safe way to express some of these um theater fantasies, all that different stuff in a healing way.
Right.
I'm curious, and I do want to get into like cosplay and how that's a little bit different. Because I do think that's a different realm, maybe similar, but could be kind of crossover.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Circus, we're in the circus. So my question is, for people that might be listening to this and maybe like have grief or pain or trauma around an unfortunate sexual experience that may have happened to them, whether it was through childhood or through a time where they feel like they might have betrayed themselves by, not saying no to a situation, or being forcefully, put into any type of sexual situation with rape or any type of like a part of a person that might feel like danger, or unsafety. Have you worked with people through those types of traumas, and um, have you, I guess like my question would be like, would the recreation of some of those scenarios be disempowering or be like re-triggering for them in a way that's unhealthy? Or is there a way that you work through this with people that have experienced like tremendous horror, and like could it be healing? If there's somebody out there listening that's like, what but I've had this experience, so I would never be able to go into that realm because I'm so traumatized by what may have happened, you know?
Yeah. And to that person, I would say, okay. Like, yeah, like,
Mhm.
of course.
Yeah.
But mostly if people are curious about BDSM, but they're nervous about stepping into it because of past experiences or anything like that, I would say, again, start with that holistic sensuality, that holistic sexuality, because with BDSM, you want to have deep consciousness. You want to have a real good understanding of what you're playing, why you're playing this game, who you're playing it with, their boundaries, why they're playing that game. You know, like
Hmm.
all there's so much to consider around it. So in from my teachings and my perspectives, I would bring that person back to holistic sensuality and holistic sexuality and like just breathe into your pussy. Just that's all you gotta do for the next week. Like
Doing Kegels right now.
yeah, and then we kind of progress and move forward from there. And if if desires like that come up and come forward and come through, like, okay, how can we work with those in a really conscious way that can support your liberation from this?
Okay. Amazing. Um, I brought up earlier kind of like the media that's out there for people to consume. Do you feel like that's an accurate portrayal of like the work that you do sometimes, or is that kind of like taboo, or like is there anything taboo out there in that um portrayal, I guess, that people are seeing and consuming?
I don't know what was the first one you mentioned?
Like 50 Shades of
Oh,
Grey, like
okay.
those types of movies
Yeah.
and stuff, or like
50 Shades of Grey was not so much because they had an unhealthy relationship to begin with, and that power play within their relationship. I mean, that's always going to happen in a relationship, but it was pretty flawed to begin with. So
Mhm.
50 Shades of Grey, um, no.
Okay, that's what I wanted. A
Yeah,
yes or no?
yeah,
It's a no. It's
yeah.
a thumbs down.
Yeah,
It felt a little bit like it was an unsafe experience for one person
yeah,
because of the other person's needs.
right.
And that to me maybe makes people shy away from this work because they feel like they might be put into a situation where they're having to give up something that makes them feel
Yeah,
unsafe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And BDSM isn't about, yeah, giving up a part of yourself or a part of your values or a part of your consent just to, you know,
People, please.
just to people please.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be a kink, but you want
Yeah.
to work through it very consciously.
Yeah.
It can, yeah, it's like it can get existential. Like,
Hmm. I do feel like, speaking from self and also from like close friends and women that I've done work with, it does feel like people pleasing is like a really big topic, at least that's been like present throughout like my childhood, what I learned from other people, from media, from consuming movies, all the things that like people pleasing or like pleasing the other person that you're in relationship with, or whether it be man, woman, indifferent, it feels like that has been kind of like on the platter for um or kind of like dished to us as like a norm,
mhm.
and so that's been something that like personally I've been working on, not people pleasing in that way, like um and that's another reason why I've been hearing from a lot of men on like the holding back of the expression of the orgasm, because it's like the woman is trying to like please, 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 but and I won't make it gendered, but from my experience it's been like make the man come, like make the man like please the man, and then the woman is left potentially sometimes with no orgasmic experience. And I feel like that's actually the majority of couples, because I don't actually feel like a lot of people in the world are working on this. Now, in our small little community of like beautiful, conscious people that I interact with every day, people are talking about this all the time. But I think like outside of this bubble that we've like kind of put ourselves in, I don't think people are experiencing healthy orgasm in the way that we're talking about. So what would you have to say to that? Like, what are your thoughts or experiences or any like thing that you could add to that for people that are just like, well, my partner would never want to have these types of conversations or wouldn't want to, like what could they do to try and like not modify, but like experience something different energetically, I guess.
Yeah. When you were talking, I was feeling into boundaries. I mean, boundaries is so important. And again, I drive them back to holistic sensual or sexuality to understand themselves a little bit deeper and to understand where their boundaries are first. Like you got to understand because if we're in an experience that we're not totally loving or isn't very consensual, we might not even know it at the time. We might not even have any idea. So that's where, again, bringing consciousness into our own self-pleasure practice, into our own sexuality work, and we start to get to know ourselves. That's really the only way we're going to start to figure out, okay, well, what do I do with this with my partner?
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful segue into like self practices too. I think that would
And
like
not for the partner.
not for the partner, yeah.
But for you.
For you.
Like
yeah.
so you can figure it out for yourself and figure out how do I enjoy this and what's my narrative right now and how do I shift into a sexual narrative that feels beautiful and empowering or whatever, however you want it to feel.
Cool. I think that this is like a perfect way for us to talk about self-pleasure practices. And so I think before we get into like crystal egg and jade egg stuff, I would love to hear from you more about like self-pleasure practices that women can do or and men can do through different modalities that you've studied, whether it be like, you know, just like expanding and contracting muscles or breath or any type of self-pleasure practice that has helped your expansiveness and feeling more comfortable with your own body. Because that's another thing too. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that don't even feel comfortable even looking at themselves in the mirror in those body parts. And so what are some things that people can do to start relating to their own bodies in a healthy and beautiful way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Set up a space. Set up a beautiful space that feels good and like exciting. This might resonate for some people. It might not resonate for other people, but creating a ritual around it. Okay, I'm gonna light my incense. I'm gonna, I have this time for self-pleasure and I want it to be, very conscious. And like that's the intention and that's the attention that you put into it. So let that be the intention is consciousness. And so setting up your ritual space and letting it be a ritual for yourself and your body, again, to create that bridge from body to the cosmos or the heavens or whatever it is, while at the same time being deeply rooted in your body. Focusing on your breath, releasing out sound, touching yourself in ways you haven't before. You can use other, like I like sensation play, so sensation tools. It helps to diversify a little bit. If you're like, okay, like I know the feel of my hands though. Try with different pressure, try with something lighter, try with, a feather tool or something. That's probably one of my favorite things, is a feather tool. So yeah, so use your breath, use your sound, use your felt sensation and notice your reaction to that. Notice your body's reaction to like, okay, like as my hand goes up my inner thigh, like how, like this is changing sensation and what I'm feeling in that energetic space of the womb or of your sacral chakra. So as much as you can, self-pleasure in like a body meditation. So just like at the end of a yoga class when the teacher's like, and scan your body from head to toe. Like touch yourself, breathe, sound, like even let out sound if you like aren't feeling it necessarily. So sigh. And then as things kind of warm up a little bit, like use your voice. That's going to help open up your pelvis. So use your voice to support you. So focus on your breath, focus on sound, touch yourself in different ways, allow it to be like an exploration without even having this idea of like, okay, I need to come, or I need to have an orgasm, or it needs to end in this very particular way, or I need to like ascend my consciousness. Like just take out all of your relax. I've definitely had those before, and I'm like, wait, that didn't happen. Like, yeah, no shit. Like, so definitely taking as much pressure off of yourself as you can, is very supportive, and embodying as much as you can, breathing, sounding.
Yeah, releasing expectations and allowing yourself to just like surrender into the moment, I think has been really helpful. And, I've done like probably over a dozen of your workshops at this point, maybe even more. And a few of the things that I would love to add to what you just mentioned is that one of your workshops, we actually used flowers as a sensation tool. And that, like, you mentioned a feather, but also like even just using like a rose or like a flower to like stroke along your arms. Like it's just a different sensation. And I thought that that was a super beautiful practice because then it was also like smelling good too. And it's like,
Yeah.
ooh, when all those senses are really like turned on, I
It's
think
very sensual to use a rose or
yeah,
a flower of any kind.
yeah.
Yeah.
A rose vibrates at, I think, 320. It's like the highest vibration of any flower. And so that's kind of a cool thing too. It's like a little tuning fork almost. In a loving way. It's like a heart medicine. So it also can turn on that self-love.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing all that. And I just wanted to reflect that back that I've had such a great experience with the exploration through your work and your workshops and like the things that you're offering. And also coming up soon, we have a mirror workshop, which I also feel like ties to self-love because it's something where you're actually like looking at yourself, which
Yeah.
can be scary for some people.
Hmm.
And at the same time, we have like, what is it, 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of them are negative self-talk.
Hmm.
And so when people get up and they look at the mirror in the morning and they're getting ready or brushing their teeth or whatever, a lot of what we're looking at is like, what's wrong with us? Oh, I have this mark on my face. Oh, it's this. Oh, I need this or this, whatever,
Yeah.
men or women. And so like this negative self-talk, and I think the mirror work, and I'm excited to see what happens because we haven't even done this workshop yet, but I think it can help flip that script a little bit for the self-love practices. So I'm curious, like, yeah, what else you would add for self-pleasure, self-love, those kinds of things, if there's anything at all.
Yeah, I think just like intentionally entering into that self-pleasure space just radicalizes the way that you experience self-love. Because, self-love has been just like such a phrase over the last couple of years, and like eat right for self-love, and like do your practices for self-love,
Yoga for
but
self-love, everything for
which is
self-love.
which
Yeah.
is great, and that's and it's cool that there's like a focus there. But I'm seeing a lot like where we're kind of missing is the sex part of self-love. And we might have sex with our partner because we love them, maybe, hopefully. But sometimes when we're in self-pleasure, or we're just like wanting to come or something, um, we're not coming from that space of self-love. We're just kind of just like, let's just get over with. Right. And that's just like very common in our society to fantasize, to not really be in the body, to just have a really quick experience for that release. Um, but the invitation is to kind of embrace and hold yourself in that space, and not only like do your mantras or your affirmations or, you know, your herbs or whatever it is that you do for self-love, but also pleasure yourself for love, because that is like the true embodiment of it. And we have the privilege to do that as humans on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So what I do want to ask about your experience with the yoni practices. So one that I would love to talk about is the egg, jade egg, crystal egg, whatever egg you working with. And like what that is and what it does and like how it's helpful for women. And like pelvic floor and all that good stuff. Um, and like what it does for women to become to come into relation with that part of their body, even women that are like, oh my God, I would never look at myself in the mirror at that piece of equipment that I have.
Hmm.
When it's like, oh my gosh, that's like what creates life. That is like the universe. And so, yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on those two things, and maybe they can weave into each other however you see fit.
Yeah, so jade egg is an ancient Taoist practice that supposedly priestesses used to use to work with their sexual energy. There's a lot of controversy around it anyway. Some people say, like, don't ever use that. Some people say, yeah, this is great. So if you use it and you feel like it's great for you, then good. Like, do whatever feels right. But
Yeah.
for me, for my practice, I really love it. It's one of the things that it was one of my first sort of sacred sensuality, sacred sexuality practices. And so it was originally jade, right? Back in the day when the Taoist priestesses were using it. But we do know now that if you're using stones, they get micro cracks, and so they'll hold onto bacteria.
Mm.
So if you have a jade egg at home or a rose quartz egg or something made of crystal, I'm sorry, just keep it on your altar. Please don't put it inside of you, like please. Um, and but if you still want to work with that energy and still work with the tool itself, you can get I think it's boracilic acid. I don't know. It's made out of the the material that they use to make glass dildos. So it's the same thing. It's hygienic, it's good. Just wash it every time, all that stuff. But so all that prep work being said, I love the jade egg. I'll still call it a jade egg, just to kind of like honor the stone and its essence. Um, and yeah, there's so much that can be worked on there. I found that for me, using the jade egg really helped to support me in my awareness of my vaginal muscles. So yeah, you can do that with Kegels for sure. But for me, I just felt like it was really helpful to have something to like squeeze and press against into. And then also, as we mentioned earlier, as much as you can, allow yourself to like relax into it and feel what happens like when you relax those muscles and how can you still feel the egg. So it's super, super sensitivity building for inside the vagina. And that's why I love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you think it's helpful for people that have like given birth where their, canals are like have been expanded or widened? And like, what would you say there for people that have become moms and yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'd say see a pelvic floor therapist
Okay.
first.
We are
And
not
see if
doctors.
there, yeah. I'd say see a pelvic floor therapist and see if there's tension there. Because if there's tension there, and you're really not able to release it just like by consciously releasing your muscles, then it's not really gonna do too much for you. So, yeah, see a pelvic floor therapist. They're cool
They are
for
cool.
the most part. I know a
Yeah.
cool one, so.
I do too. I know a few people
Who do
that
you
work
know?
Who's your person?
Lynn her last name, DePrito. She works out of Alta Vitas.
Yes, I know Lindsay and like,
Yes,
yeah. Yeah, for those who are listening locally on Cape Cod, that would be a great contact. But if
yes.
you're anywhere else in the world,
Well, she also has Instagram too, so you can follow her on Instagram. But
perfect.
yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know if there's like any stigma. I don't really know much about the pelvic floor therapy world, but if there's any stigma around it, like let's break it. We don't need to. Let's go see a pelvic floor therapist like whenever we can,
Yeah.
and get some support for what's going on down there, specific support. So
Cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Um, God, there's like so many questions for you. I think we just need to do a part two, but the last thing I'll ask that like people wanted to know about, kind of like on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Um, what do you feel like, where do you feel like people shy away in this type of work? And like for what reasons have you seen? And can you speak to those? And then like, well, actually let me that's a big question. So let me just leave it there and then I'll ask the other one. But like, yeah, where have you seen people kind of like shying away or being like, I don't want to do that work? Like, and how can we kind of overcome and allow people to come to this type of work, whether it's with you or anyone else in their field, like if they're not local to Massachusetts, like how can they expand themselves into this work? And what do you see like people shying away for what reasons typically?
I see people shying away from this work. Honestly, just I think out of unfamiliarity. I think people may not be able to like grasp the support that this work can offer mind, body, and soul. And I kind of think about it like if we were in the 60s and people were running down the street, that would be really weird. We'd be like, that person's crazy running. Why would they be running?
Mhm.
You don't need to stay fit. You just are. Like, why would you run? Like, and now it's like we're all going to the gym. We all know why it's important to run, or to exercise or whatever, and to take care of our bodies. So, I think bringing our consciousness down into, like, literally even just bringing our consciousness down into that space, the pelvis, um, is something that we're really not familiar with. And I think, in fact, societally, we have like a block, and like societally, we want to live up here, right? That's like where all of our value should be, right? Should, quotes around should. So, yeah, I think I see people shying away from the work because there's like, um, a block just literally around the pelvis and all the energy there, but also the musculature. Um, that people aren't aware of, and don't tap into, and don't like consider every single day. But it is such a great source of health to be working with, and also can be such a great source of, again, enlightenment to work with this energy too. So yeah.
Even for men too, I feel like, we know now scientifically through studies that prostate cancer is linked to men not being like super active and allowing expression, and for other reasons too. But I feel like it's because that block is not just for women, it's for men too, just not being connected
Yeah.
to that part of the body in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's very important. We all need to be connected.
Yeah.
We all need to know what the body's about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I just to finish off that question, I also see people maybe shy away out of a feeling that it's deeply like this work is deeply connected to their maidenhood, right? So like this like maiden archetype, this like young energy, and that's also not true, because again, we still have our pelvis, right? We still, as we age,
Yeah.
it's still there, yeah. No matter what has happened to it, kids, all kinds of surgeries, things like that, like it's still there, and that energy is still there for us. And it's actually a really great resource for, again, life force energy, that energy that helps us to create artwork, or to, do our greatest passion, or to move through our business or our career. So I think I see that a lot, is maybe some older women kind of might not think it's a part of who they are anymore, which it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. But the invitation is there, and there's lots of great mystery, no matter how old you are.
Thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The work is for everyone. Cool. Okay, two more questions, and then we'll save the rest of the juiciness for round two. The first question is around your thoughts on like sex working and pornography, and like how how long do you have?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Just around like healthy expressions versus unhealthy expressions. And of course, there's that with everything in the world. Like there's always the duality, but yeah, just your experience with those expressions, and how you feel like it's impacting the world in a good way. Because I do think that there's always the good with the bad. So and
Yeah.
also the opposite. So yeah, I'm just curious your opinions on all those things.
Yeah.
In a short way, I guess. Yeah. In the non-5 hour answer.
Yeah, the sex work industry is so dynamic and diverse. that I don't think anyone could directly speak to it as a whole, because there are so many people that are working non-consensually, not with their free will. And there are people that are working with their free will. Same thing with pornography and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, I think that sex work has been around forever and it's not going away. So I think what brings up mostly for this question for me is the decriminalization of sex work, and it feels really important, and our ability as a society to be able to protect sex workers, and to start supporting them find more safety in their business day to day. So yeah, it's really important. It's a hot topic, especially for me right now, as you know, as a midnight ballerina. It's like something I'm just like constantly contemplating, and we can come back to this next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so big. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's a good little seed that's planted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently watched a podcast how and we can talk about this next time as well, but I'm just planting the seed where this like undercover sex worker was going out and then they were arresting the people that hired her to do the sex work, and it was like this whole underground like operation. And to me the bigger part of that wasn't like, oh, go arrest those people. It was almost like, why are those people feeling like they have to suppress or shame themselves for something that they could have just done in their partnership? Because um I think the stat that the person shared on this podcast was that over 90% of those people were in partnership actually,
Hmm.
and not able to fully express themselves in
Hmm.
partnership. So they were turning to um, almost like a private, like hotel room type sex work experience because they felt shame in their life. And so how are we able to heal our men and our women if we're, placing judgment or blame or shame and like perpetuating the guilt cycle of around sex in general, around the whole conversation around sex, likes, dislikes, what people, want to do and want to explore, and how that's been suppressed too, that has caused these different reactions,
Hmm.
Of course, there's choice and everything, but yeah, this is a whole other rabbit hole we could go down, but there's so much there.
Yeah.
Um,
There's so
with
much.
suppression, I feel like a lot of it is suppression, and laws and all the things.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we'll leave that. We'll table that. We'll table that one. Thank you for your
Woo!
question.
Yeah.
Thank you for submitting questions, by the way. I love everyone. Thank you. So I know you, everyone that's a Serene fan was like, oh, ask her this, ask her this, ask her that, but also DM her, like she
Yeah.
said. So Danny, I'm gonna call you out. Danny wanted to know, where's your limit? What's your line? Would you try anything, everything, or is there like a serene line?
Um, the line is dependent on the person
Ooh, okay.
and the situation. So many factors.
Okay.
But no.
There's no line.
Like,
Yeah, I love that.
no, not right now. Not right now. I think the world of sexuality, especially kink, can get like really, really specific and wild. So it's hard to even predict. Like you
Yeah.
can't predict it.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean right now it's just like, and it's in the moment thing. There's been times where, I've felt like I've wanted to do a particular act or whatever, and then 2 days later I'm not into it. So it's like
Okay.
it's totally dependent on my energy, the people I'm with,
Mhm.
and also the space too. The space needs to be cute.
We need
The
cute
space,
spaces.
the space needs to be aesthetically pleasing for
It
me.
needs to be a vibe.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like feeling safe.
The container is so important for safety in everything,
Yeah.
by the way. And like I've told this before on this podcast, but just briefly, like I went and did a breath work that somebody hired me to do, and it was like this random space that had been rented. And it was like right next to a restaurant. The smells were like the grease were like coming through the walls. There was no blankets, no bolsters. It was like a rented yoga studio, but there was like nothing in there.
You're like breathing in that.
And yeah, and it was just like breathing in like fried grease, and I was like, oh my God, it like so was not the vibe. And I felt like even the people that were participating in that, even though that was like the chosen locale, I had never been there before, and it was such a good learning experience for me that now I'm like so extra careful with container and what's in there, what is provided, where are the cozy spaces and spots, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd say the container for all of this type of energy work in general is so important because safety is like the number one, and we as facilitators are the like responsible people
Yeah.
for providing that in order for people to fully express and to find healing within themselves, which is like the ultimate purpose of a lot of this is just
Yeah.
self work, self healing, and then of course in this work it's partner work too. There's so much more that we could talk about that I didn't even get to ask you. But that's okay. We'll work on it next time. Yeah, they'll definitely have to be around too.
I'm around.
I had so much to ask you around, like even like period blood masks and like so much other stuff within like the woman sisterhood bonding community, healing some of that stuff. So yeah, we'll get into all that next time. But otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for yeah, if you got this far, thank you for listening and thank you for continuing to do the work on yourselves and being curious. I'm actually just this is
I
like
know, I noticed
hilarious.
that before.
There's a
In
book
the
in front of us and it
Himalayas.
says Shamanism and Tantra in the Himalayas, and I didn't even realize that
Maybe
book
we should
was
have
in
just
front of
read
us.
the book.
Can we just look at the book? Do we need definitions? Yeah, so anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us and for supporting Serene's work. You can find her locally all over Cape Cod in Massachusetts. She does work at many different spaces. And yeah, you can just look her up on, follow her on Instagram. I'll have her shout out all her socials, all the things where you can follow her. But then also virtually too, you can kind of see where she's going. She's got retreats coming up. There's so much. So yeah, what do you have? How can people follow you, find you, and learn about all this stuff that you have going on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as Serene Daydream and come to Sensual Sanctuary, like just come. That is like the monthly reoccurring thing that I offer in this work and yeah, and it's just so nice to meet people in person if I'm being honest. So yeah, and I also have a retreat coming up with Julia Rugo. It's a weekend retreat on sensual embodiment. So we'll be working with sound and nature and doing all kinds of different practices to get into our sensual self. And yeah, that'll be in May in Vermont. It's 3 days. And if you're interested in that, there's you can go onto juliarugosa.com. And you can also find it on my Instagram page. And yeah.
Cool. And if you're watching this a year from now, still go find her and follow her and see what she has going on.
Yeah,
Because I'm
maybe
sure.
we'll have another retreat.
My God. And she's also
Distracted right now.
It's a perfect way to end a Serene podcast. Thank you all. We'll see you soon. And then if I shouted out any books or anything, I'll include all the links in the description. I know I shouted out Jamie Wheel's Recapture the Rapture. Please go read that if you haven't. It's an amazing book. Kind of changed my life on a lot of these topics. And yeah, follow Serene everywhere that she is. Cool. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Boop, boop.
I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.